Well, hello everyone. Welcome here. Uh, this is exciting. Hey, my name is Brendan.
I'm Nathan.
Hey, and this is our very first Mythwind live stream. History is being made right now, and thank you all for joining in. Hey, as we get going, we have a few things that we want to chat through today, but feel free to post questions as questions arise. We're going to try to talk about kind of the overview of what Mythwind is, about who Nathan and I are. Yeah, excited to kind of field any questions. Yeah, but let's just get right into it. Mythwind, what is Mythwind? I'll share a little bit of my kind of pitch, what I feel, and then Nathan can kind of jump in here. Mythwind, it's an open-ended cooperative game where players assume asymmetrical roles to help their new town grow and flourish in this magical valley called Mythwind. And so we have a bunch of elements at play in the game, but it's this really unique blend of cooperative asymmetry as we give players kind of like a sandbox to explore. And there's a lot of story, there's a lot of magic, and I would say whimsicalness to it, and some fun kind of gameplay hooks. At least this, when I kind of do the elevator pitch, that's like the first 10, 15 seconds. Nathan, I don't know, what for you, what do you feel like describes Mythwind?
Well, I think when you first were talking to me about it, the pitch at that time is still, I think, relevant now, and that was like a game that you can kind of relax in and slowly grow, and it just has sort of a different cadence than any other games that we've ever seen before. So, that initial conversation kind of led to the background and the lore of the place, and so to me, a big part of what Mythwind is a game about settling a town, yes, but also about like discovering everything that's existed before and what's possible, and also just it's also a story about how you want to build going forward and what's important to you, like advancement and technology, or perhaps care and nurturing. Like there's a lot of different avenues to go in the game. So that open-ended aspect is a huge part of the identity to me.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like kind of the initial idea of what you were mentioning was really sparked by this idea of just sitting down and enjoying a game that kind of develops as you play it, and not feeling maybe impeded by a set finish time. And when I pitched it to my boss, to the owner of Games, he was like, "Oh, this is kind of like a bonsai tree of board games, right?" So if you're familiar with bonsai trees, it takes a little bit of tending each day to kind of grow this kind of awesome, almost magical looking piece of nature. And that's kind of this vibe that we want to capture with Mythwind, where you can quickly kind of take it out, set it up, and we have some unique solutions for that. And you can tend to your town, you can progress with your player role, and you can grow your village and kind of discover more about Mythwind, and put it away, and this real kind of relaxing, progressive experience. And so it is interesting because it's kind of like a campaign-esque game without maybe tying people down a little bit. Yeah, so I'm excited. But before we get to more Mythwind, hey, and I know there's like, okay, you guys haven't really shown much, and and we're in the process of developing. We're thick in the middle of the artwork and of the gameplay elements being created, and we're excited. But before we do that, maybe we can share a little bit about who Nathan, who you are, and who I am. So feel free to tell the world, who are you, Nathan, co-designer of Mythwind?
I'm still figuring out the answer to that question, but yeah, I am co-designing on the game, and I mean immediately prior to this, I was doing a story on Stars of Icarios, and so that was my first interaction with Brendan, and and that was a really fun process. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this is a game that part of that original Genesis, there was a story behind it. And so, as far as who I am, I mean, I'm someone who has enjoyed kind of fiddling around with games for a long time and telling story for a long time. But this is a really cool opportunity to take it onto like a bigger stage and a bigger platform, and really exciting to be doing it with a game that seems really unique and fresh and unprecedented in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What's a couple of your favorite games?
Um, well, I'm kind of all over the map with favorite games, but I mean, I like something like Dominion is one of the first games that got me into the hobby, and it's still one of my
Oh,
favorites
yeah.
because of just kind of how quick it plays. And I don't mean like total runtime, but like your turns are really fast. It has this really kind of smooth engine, so I love that kind of thing. That a really kind of sleek, tight experience. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I really enjoy X-Wing, which is a skirmish game, which is a much more involved, like getting out a lot of pieces and stuff. But it has a great kind of game theory moment where like I've got my X-Wing, you've got your TIE fighters, and I'm deciding where to move. And I know where the best move is, but I know that you know that I know what the best move is. And so there's like this sort of like constant double and triple guessing what you're doing. So that aspect is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And hey, my name is Brendan. I am again, yeah, co-designing Mythwind, and we both work at Games. We get the wonderful experience to be designers at and it's fantastic. Before Mythwind, and I'm actually just in the final stages of finishing up a few tweaks on the rulebook and the scenario book for Stars of Ikarios. And if you're unfamiliar with that game, feel free to give it a Google. We raised, I think, just over 900,000 Canadian on Kickstarter. And I looked at the numbers after the pledge manager, and we hit a milestone yesterday, which was like 1.4 million, which is fantastic. And so we're excited to deliver that game in the fall to thousands of backers, and it is turning out to be quite the production in all of the best ways. That's a big epic kind of narrative, sci-fi dungeon crawling type of game. And kind of shifting focus, for me, I love cooperative games, and I love games that have persistence. So that's like a key word for me when I think of what excites me about a game design. And I don't necessarily mean like legacy where you're kind of tearing things up or whatever. I like persistence and just having the choices and gameplay moments that you make during a gameplay session actually carry over into future sessions. And that's always been kind of a core through line of how I approach game design. And we jump into Mythwind here, and we have kind of these three areas, and these are kind of the three things that we want to touch base. And again, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to share them out to us. But these three kind of broad themes of what is kind of like the glue of Mythwind and kind of like the through line of Mythwind. We have the first one, which is cooperative town. Okay, cooperative town, settlement, village. Cooperative town. Second one is asymmetrical roles. And the third is open-ended. Okay, so we have cooperative town, asymmetrical roles, and open-ended. These are the three main through lines that describe Mythwind. So, hey, Nathan, maybe you can jump in. We didn't really plan a whole lot of this. We talked through what we wanted to work through on the live stream, but not in detail. But Nathan, when you hear cooperative town, and when you think of that as a through line for the game of Mythwind, what comes to mind?
Well, in the context of Mythwind, I think about how it's different than a lot of cooperative games. I mean, a lot of cooperative games are about overcoming the challenge of the game, like it's you versus the game. And in Mythwind, you're really working with the game in a lot of ways. We're building something. That's where the bonsai tree comparison really fits for me, because the town is the thing that you are curating throughout your experience and making really individual, so that if you decide to play with someone else who has Mythwind somewhere down the line, you can both pull your town out, play side by side, and interact. but their town, even if they're a similar amount of time into the game, could look really quite different than yours. And so that's that kind of individual aspect, that personal aspect that you are doing either by yourself or with someone else. So it can be a reflection of more than one player. Um, so the town's really kind of what everything revolves around. That's what you're building and shaping and stuff while you are functioning within your role. That'll be very unique then from the other roles that people are playing.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly. It's like we kind of picture this town as the hub, and if you know anything about kind of like these kind of pioneer settlement kind of villages, towns really have this like core aspect, right? Trade happens in town. People purchase and sell good. That is trade. But there's all the interaction, community building, all the stuff. Really, the town is the center. And so, in a sense, it's a little bit like the hubcap in a bike, and then the spokes coming out. And so the core kind of cylinder in Mythwind is the town itself, and the spokes that kind of lead away from the town are the asymmetrical roles. But everything points towards and funnels into the town. And so when you see progression, right, when Nathan's talking about pulling out your town, and even looking at another person's town, you're going to see their town. You're going to see how their town is producing goods, and the economy of that town, how large it is, all these different things. You'll see all the buildings that have been built. That's one of the main kind of signs of progression in the town, is you build a lot of buildings. And it is the thing that ties all the roles together, because as you build things up, we're like, okay, how do our asymmetrical roles kind of interact with one another? And we're like, oh, hey, people would meet in the town. And so that's kind of the core with that. Clinton here on Facebook is hey Clinton, thanks for joining us, saying love the premise of Mythwind, the artwork so far, and the storytelling focus. Hey, thanks Clinton. We those are kind of core things for us. I have fond memories of playing long, relaxing games that slowly progress, like Harvest Moon. Me too. Stardew Valley is one that comes to mind. Are there some farming elements in Mythwind you could talk about? And I think this is a great kind of segue to the next kind of core thing, right? We have cooperative town, and we also have the idea of asymmetrical roles. And so how asymmetrical roles work, it's very unique to that role. And so one of the roles that's come in the first box is the farmer. And so the farmer, and we're going to kind of get more into the roles, I think, in the future. I think maybe we'll block off the next live stream for the farmer, and maybe the following one for the crafter, and on. But one of the main roles is the farmer. And so the farmer is kind of like a if you're familiar with a game like My City, it's a newer game. It draws a few elements from that, but it's this kind of cool tile building, tile placing mechanic that you actually get to purchase farm upgrades. You get to grow and tend your crops, and then harvest your crops, and so your center of life. Yeah, you're interacting with the town. But each of these asymmetrical roles has a unique player board where you're kind of interacting, and you're actually building out that player board as you're interacting with the town. And so as the farmer, you're going to actually kind of be creating different elements of your farm that's going to persist from session to session, from day to day. In-game turn is a day, and from season to season and year to year, you're going to kind of be growing that farm as your town grows itself. So asymmetrical roles. Nathan, I know I'm missing other stuff that kind of defines it. No, just the idea that we are trying to get behind with the asymmetry in this.
Well, I think that we want to the variety of having the different roles is just sort of fun and interesting, and gives people like a different version of a way to interact with the town. So some people might be really into the farmer, like you said, has got that polyomino mechanic. And you kind of like always kind of building your engine, running it, and then having to build it again, which is a bit like London maybe. So that's kind of a fun thing. Or the other role that we're working on is the crafter right now, and that's more of a bag building aspect. So you might want to play different roles because of the mechanical reasons. You just sort of enjoy the different ways they play. You might want to just try them all out. I know with the crafter, my thought was like I wanted to create something where there's like a demand for your services to make sort of like an artisanal level of types of things that you would craft. And so I've been making that role with a bag builder with the idea that the orders kind of go in the bag and you pull them out, and through those things you pull out of the bag, you can continue to work on the craft items that you're making, or you can improve your skills. As you make them, you can improve your reputation, so you get more money the more you do them. And with that money, in both of the roles, that's kind of how you can go to the town and build more buildings and interact with the town, basically. And so there's a lot of with all of the roles. Obviously, none of it is static. We've talked about how the town can take on its own unique identity, but the roles too, you don't kind of get the role and just play with that through the whole game. You're going to evolve what your role is good at and how you use it, and you'll get more out of it as the game goes on. So they advance as well. And depending on how well you're doing, you'll do a better job of going to town and make more buildings, and your population level will go up, and the story itself will evolve as well. That's a huge part of the town as well. So everything is in this sort of state of growth.
Yeah.
It's sort of expanding and contracting constantly.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
well,
but-
you're talking about the advancement of not just the town but of the player roles, and I think this is a key part that it's going to make you want to keep coming back to the game, and instead of just I've played the farmer enough, I'm going to switch to the crafter. Absolutely, you can do, but there's this kind of RPG-esque element of advancing the skills of your role, whether it's a crafter or farmer, and in a sense you're kind of leveling up throughout the game, adding to your repertoire. So come a couple hours into the game, you're going to be doing things with your role that you're like, wow, I didn't even think that was possible. You're going to be pulling off these sweet combos, all these different elements, and so I think that's just a real strong kind of hook as far as making you want to kind of come back and not just see the growth of the town, but it's like, oh yeah, if I level up my character this way, I actually can do this on my next turn, which is a real key thing.
It's probably worth noting too that there are commonalities that we're in the process of really kind of nailing down, because we want to make it so that you're not having to relearn the game just because you switch roles or you're introducing a role to somebody. There are certain things that'll be consistent while still leaving room for the variability of a different role, and each of them to expand in their own way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think some of those kind of unique elements, and maybe we'll take a day to walk through the town as well. Really, what we wanted to kind of cover today, which I think we did, is just kind of giving this high level overview of the game of Mythwind, and we have these three ideas, right? This cooperative town, asymmetrical roles, and this idea of open-endedness, which I'll get to now, because kind of what is tying everything together is a strong emphasis on story and kind of organic story growth throughout the game. And so Nathan's mentioned this a couple times, but you and I could be playing a game of Mythwind, and we'll get a couple hours into it, a couple years of gameplay into it, and we'll look at our town and we'll look at the story choices we've made, and we'll see that we've actually experienced the game in very different ways, and a lot of that has to do with this sense of story. And when we talk about open-endedness, it's kind of a scary word, because open-endedness, right? It's like, okay, does the game just never end? Can the game never end? And there's limits to, I guess, content, right? There's only so many cards that you can have. There's only so many things that can be unlocked. There's only so many whatever it is that you can do. And and I recognize that. But the thing with open-endedness is the idea of like playing at your own pace. And for some people, they might be able to see all of the content of the main box of Mythwind in 5 years in one way, right? That's just kind of seeing everything once. Maybe they would have to play the game through a couple times. But for others, maybe they're taking a kind of a more leisurely approach. So they're stopping to smell the flowers more often. Maybe they're going on more adventures than the person who's just focusing on getting all the buildings or whatever it is. And so the idea of open-endedness is just allowing the players freedoms. Like, hey, there's all this world to discover. There's these stories to be told. There's this progression of your town and of your players. Experience it. And hey, experience it at your own pace. Experience it how you want to experience it, right? Maybe you want to maximize and optimize and do that. And I know that some people are like Harvest Moon players who do that, absolutely. And others are like, you know what, I want to go adventure and hear the stories. And so that's the kind of the open-endedness that we want to capture. And we have ideas. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you basically, but I think that trying to create an experience for different kinds of players is definitely key to this. An example I often think of, like sort of a guiding principle, I guess, in my mind is I think back to playing, I think it was Twilight Princess on the Wii with my wife, and I'm going cave to cave to cave and progressing the story and trying to just constantly advance. And when my wife plays, she just collects butterflies the whole time. So like, there's definitely different kinds of ways to play, and in this game, I mean, there is a story that will happen as you play, but you can also pursue more stories if you want to. We have something called an adventure deck if you want to kind of go and explore basically and invite more story into your game, or you might just be more focused on making your role as lean and good and as advanced as possible, or you might be really excited about making the town as like kind of comfortable and fun and as you want it to be. So the beauty of an open-ended experience is that there's not really failure. I mean, again, this is not like a cooperative game like Pandemic where you're going to get overrun by a virus, thank goodness. But it is a game where you can go at your own pace, and you can hit some goals if you want to, but that may not be important to you. You might be more interested in just making sure that you get a tavern set up and you get this thing set up because that's you want to kind of create a town that is where you'd want to live, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that sums it up great. Hey, well, Nathan, I don't necessarily have anything else I want to cover today. I don't know if there's any kind of last words that you want to share.
Just that I'm excited to be starting the journey. Like this feels like kind of a public declaration that we're really getting down to it, and we know that we're committing to certain timelines and getting this thing public and making it work. And so we're excited to kind of show that whole process before we even get to like a final product. So it's excited to kind of publicly declare, let's get going.
And that's absolutely what's happening. Even though we've been working on the game kind of on and off for months, we're getting into it, and we love community interaction. That's why we post so many polls and questions, because you actually help shape how we build, how we think, how we kind of plan for the future. And so this is kind of day one, or not even day one, but whatever it is, of saying, hey, let's go on this journey together. And we're going to be doing bi-weekly streams or more, probably up until we launch on Kickstarter, and we can kind of jump on different aspects of all that. But before we go, there's one last question. And this is a question that everyone's going to ask. And there's a specific reason why we're probably not going to use this word in any of our promotional material. And Clinton is asking, how permanent are the legacy aspects of the game? The answer is, this is not a legacy game. This is a open-ended game, which means there are no card ripping, scratching, blah blah blah. There's no permanent aspects of the game. So it's not a legacy game. It's an open-ended game. You can take the time to reset, start from scratch, and enjoy kind of the whole story all the way through. We're making that a priority. And I'm gonna leave Clint's last question about anticipated Kickstarter date for a future date. That's great. Hey, well, thanks for joining us, everyone. And if you're tuning in late, feel free to comment on here. Afterwards, we can get to the questions as we go. Make sure to join our Facebook group, our Facebook page, and we have our Discord community that is starting up. Great. Hey, well, take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.